At home, Emma tells her younger sister Stacy that they're going to be late for school. Meanwhile, Dean is absorbed in video games instead of getting ready. His dad, Jack, reminds him to prepare. Emma and Stacy's mom, Barbara, drives them to school, expressing her love and asking about their dinner plans. As Stacy opens the car door, Dean nearly hits her while driving past, prompting her to call him a jerk, which Barbara discourages. At school, Emma encourages her best friend Lizzie to head to class early, but Lizzie is more interested in talking about boys. When quarterback Steven greets Emma, Lizzie gets excited, thinking he might like her. Emma keeps urging Lizzie to go to class. While looking for seats, Dean accidentally bumps into Emma and apologizes, playfully calling her a prom queen. Their teacher, Mr. Christensen, announces an upcoming excursion for humanitarian work in a nearby town. In class, Lizzie jokes about Dean's daddy issues, making the whole class laugh. At lunchtime, Lizzie, Emma, and friends Helen and Jude discuss how Steven knows Emma's name, hinting that she might have a chance to connect with him during the trip. Emma is not thrilled about the idea of connecting with Steven. She prefers to focus on doing meaningful work instead. During their conversation, Lizzie notices Emma gazing at Dean, who is sitting alone at their table. Soon after, a teacher comes to take Dean to the principal's office, meaning he won't be able to go on the excursion. The next morning, Barbara helps Emma pack a trailer with clothes for the multi-day trip. Emma's dad, Phil, questions why they are packing so much for just this excursion and what they will do when she goes to college. Meanwhile, Dean tells his dad that he doesn't want to go on the trip because he doesn't socialize much with his classmates. His father encourages him to participate, highlighting that it could be a chance to help others, and after some hesitation, Dean reluctantly agrees. The parents drive their children to the bus for the trip. When they arrive, Steven greets Emma, exciting Lizzie, who hopes the trip will be a great experience for her friend. At the local resort, most students eagerly jump into the pool, but Dean stays on the sidelines. While Emma has fun in the water with Steven, she notices Dean watching from the top floor, but he quickly turns and walks away. Later, Mr. Christensen takes the students to engage in community building projects. That evening, Jude shares the news that Steven has invited them to a boat party and specifically asked for Emma. Although Emma is hesitant, Lizzie jokingly threatens to drag her along. The girls dress up and head to the boat party, but Lizzie soon gets distracted by a guy, leaving Emma to search for Steven alone. While looking for him, Emma unexpectedly sees Steven kissing another girl. Dean, who is watching, asks Emma if Steven is her boyfriend. Feeling defensive, Emma walks away from the situation. Shortly after, the police arrive, causing the party guests to hurriedly dispose of any drugs they have. In the midst of the chaos, Emma accidentally falls overboard, and Dean immediately jumps into the water to rescue her. He helps her into a lifeboat and detaches it to avoid trouble with the police. Emma protests, but Dean insists he has a plan. As the police direct the party boat away, a rainstorm hits, making it difficult for them to stay afloat. The next morning, due to the students' behavior, Mr. Christensen decides to end the excursion and take everyone home. When they realize Dean and Emma are missing, they call the police. The officers think the students must be off having fun, but Lizzie argues that Emma isn't the type to enjoy herself. Meanwhile, Dean and Emma are floating in the lifeboat. Fortunately, Emma kept her phone in her bag, so it stayed dry, but they had no reception. They eventually spot an island, and Emma insists they paddle toward it. Once there, Emma suggests they look for a phone in a hotel, as if the island's gorillas have a landline. As they explore, Dean shows his knowledge of surviving in the woods. He prevents Emma from eating poisonous berries and laughs when she nearly panics over a harmless bug. After hours of searching, Emma and Dean give up on finding a hotel. When they return to the shore, they discover that the waves have taken away their lifeboat. They decide to hide for the night, hoping the police or their families will find them soon. Dean believes people are searching for Emma, but thinks no one will look for him. Meanwhile, Jack, Barbara, and Phil rush to the school upon hearing the news. They are frustrated, but focus on finding out what the Miami police are doing to locate the kids while trying to book the next flight there. In the woods, Emma and Dean play around, trying to build a shelter from the rain. Dean asks Emma about her college plans. Barbara, Phil, and Jack arrive in Miami, but the rescue party is starting to lose hope after several days. As Dean and Emma continue to build and eat coconuts, they grow closer. The heat forces them to go around mostly undressed, and Dean occasionally checks Emma out. One night, he wraps his arm around her while half asleep, and she doesn't mind. The next morning, Emma asks Dean to stand guard while she bathes in the lake, feeling uneasy about strange animal sounds. Back in the city, Phil decides to go home to care for Stacy. When the police call off the rescue efforts, Jack hires a helicopter so he and Barbara can search for the kids themselves. On the island, Dean and Emma wonder if their families are still looking for them. While exploring, Dean finds the rotting corpse of a man, which frightens Emma. She panics, fearing they might end up like him. Dean tries to reassure her, suggesting the dead man could be a criminal, and reminding her that her family is searching for her. He comforts her, and they share a passionate moment that leads to lovemaking. The next morning, Emma wakes up to find Dean gone, feeling he might see their night as just a fling. Afraid and alone, she runs into the woods, calling out his name. Eventually, Emma finds Dean digging in the ground. She confronts him about leaving her, and he explains he wants to give the corpse a proper funeral, but doesn't elaborate further. Sensing his emotional connection, Emma asks what's wrong. Dean tells her to leave him alone, insisting they aren't close just because they slept together. As she tries to reach out to him, Emma trips and hurts herself. After taking Emma to the lake, Dean gathers leaves to tend to her wound. He apologizes for his earlier words, expressing how worried he would be if she got hurt. Emma voices her concerns about their situation, but Dean reassures her that they must figure things out together. Later, Dean opens up about his frustration, revealing that he never attended his mother's funeral because he felt he couldn't handle it and feared people would blame him for her death. Emma asks why he thinks that, and he explains that she died in an accident years ago while driving him home from soccer practice. When she tries to tell him he wasn't responsible, Dean remains silent. As the rain begins to fall, Dean enthusiastically drags Emma out to dance in it. They enjoy the moment together, sharing laughter and kissing in the downpour. However, after a month, the police ultimately decide to cease their search for the missing students. In contrast, Jack and Barbara remain determined to find their daughter. They continue to search the city using a hired helicopter, distributing posters in hopes of finding leads. Barbara frequently visits the police to present her findings on weather patterns, but her efforts seem to be met with fatigue from the authorities, who appear to be growing weary of the case. Eventually, the weather in Miami worsens, prompting Jack's pilot to suggest pausing their search. Jack and Barbara sit down, feeling confused and uncertain about their next steps. Jack reflects on how devastated he was after losing Dean's mother, sharing that it nearly cost him his job and affected his relationship with Dean, which he deeply regrets. Days later, Barbara returns home, realizing their search efforts have been in vain. Meanwhile, on the island, Dean attempts to talk to Emma but notices she's preoccupied, worried about their chances of survival. He reassures her that they will find a way to manage, and they decide to have some fun in the water. Armed with spears, they go fishing, embracing their new lives as island locals. After enjoying some fish, Emma and Dean come ashore and make love. Following their intimate moment, they discuss their first experiences, and Dean learns that he was Emma's first. He's surprised, but they both laugh and reminisce about secretly watching each other at school. Later, while they're deep in the woods, they hear a plane flying overhead. Dean rushes back to retrieve the flare guns he had taken from the lifeboat, but when he reaches the spot, he discovers they're missing. He calls out to get the pilot's attention, but it doesn't work. Emma soon arrives and becomes upset when she realizes the flare gun is gone. She notices other items are also missing and wonders if someone has been stealing from them. Frustrated, she heads toward the shore, unable to bear being stranded on the island any longer. Moments later, Emma and Dean sit down, feeling down about recent events. They suddenly hear a low growl, prompting Dean to angrily march toward the sound, to confront whatever is making it. As he moves into the woods, he spots a small moving figure, and Emma follows him to try to stop him. After pursuing the moving figure, Dean realizes it's a black panther. Startled by the encounter, he takes off running, with the panther close behind him. Emma, hearing the noise, rushes through the woods to find Dean. As she searches, she spots the panther chasing him and watches in horror as Dean trips over a tree branch. The panther lunges at Dean, but in a moment of quick thinking, he stabs it with his pocket knife. Emma quickly rushes to his side, finding him covered in blood. Meanwhile, back in their hometown, life begins to return to normal. The local school children seem to have moved on, with most people having forgotten about the missing individuals. However, the families of those missing continue to feel the pain of their absence. In the woods, Emma and Dean come across a monkey that has been stealing their belongings. They manage to retrieve some of their items, including the flare gun, which gives them a glimmer of hope in their challenging situation. Later, Dean suggests to Emma that they should consider building a permanent life together, since they have little to return to. Emma responds that he's crazy to think they can settle for a life of mere survival. Afterward, she goes to apologize for how she shouted at him, expressing that she doesn't appreciate his efforts enough. While they talk, they hear a helicopter overhead and quickly rush to fire the flare gun. Hours later, Emma and Dean arrive at the city airport, holding hands. Dean's dad is there to greet him, but the entire city, including Emma's parents, has come to welcome her back. In the crowd, Emma and Dean become separated as they head home. That night, Dean sneaks in to see Emma. He tries to kiss her, but she asks him to leave, worried about her parents. However, she invites him to her upcoming party. At the party celebrating the return of the missing kids, everyone focuses on Emma while Dean stands alone in a corner. He gestures for Emma to join him elsewhere, but she ignores him. At school, Emma is surrounded by friends and Dean watches from a distance. That evening, Emma calls Dean, but he doesn't answer. Later, she tells Stacy she won't be going to prom with Steven, as everyone thinks. Instead, she asks Stacy to be her date. The next day, Dean visits his mother's grave to apologize for missing her funeral and to thank her for watching over them on the island. On prom night, Stacy goes with Emma, while Dean stays home to watch a match. Jack finds Dean on the couch and offers him his tuxedo so he can attend prom. At the prom, Lizzie takes Emma to find Dean, who is standing in the rain. Emma steps outside to kiss him, and they share a dance in the rain together. This is where the movie ends. Subscribe if you enjoyed.